All right, let's get right into this. We are cracking open one of the most secret files in the entire Imperial Archives, the Omega Obscurus dossier. And what's inside is the story of a cultural collision so massive, it almost unraveled the very fabric of the 41st millennium. This is the story of an impossible arrival. And this line right here, this is the final verdict from the Ordo Chronos. And really, it's the key to this whole thing, isn't it? It's the crazy paradox we're going to dig into. Because to the Imperium of man, hope wasn't a good thing. It was a disease. So that's the big question, right? This is what the whole dossier is about. We're going to follow the Inquisition's own threat assessment, step by step, to figure out how a genuine force for good could be seen as the single greatest danger to galactic survival. So this whole thing kicks off not with an invasion, not with a bang, but with, well, a glitch. The arrival of this entity didn't follow any known rules of physics or, warp magic. It wasn't an act of war, it was like an error in the source code of reality itself. You've got to listen to the language the Imperial astropaths used here. They didn't see a warp storm or some tear in the veil. They recorded a hesitation, like reality itself just froze for a second to try and figure out what he was. He didn't arrive, he just was. And here's why that was such a huge problem. See, the Imperium's first line of defense is always to slap a label on something. Is it a Xenos, a demon, some weird piece of tech? But this guy, he didn't fit anywhere. No warp trail, no psychic hum, nothing. And without a box to put him in, their entire system of control just started to short circuit. In this, right here, this is the real, irreconcilable conflict. It was never about who could punch harder. It was about what they fundamentally were. His entire existence is based on a principle that is just totally alien to this universe. In a galaxy where humanity is just fuel for the fire, the idea that a single life has value, that's not just a different opinion, that's heresy. Okay, so the dossier then starts laying out the evidence, and it focuses on 3 huge encounters. And in every single one, he didn't just beat his enemies, he broke the very rules that their reality runs on. So, case file number 1. An Imperial mining world about to be completely swallowed by a massive Ork Waaagh. The Guard were dug in, getting ready for their last, glorious, suicidal stand. Business as usual. And then he showed up. He didn't give them the big, bloody fight the orcs need, the thing they crave. No. He just dismantled their war machines in midair, knocked their war bosses out cold, and flat out refused to play their game of violence. He denied them the good fight that their whole psychic existence depends on. And the fallout from this was just weird. The Waaagh field, the collective psychic energy of the orcs, it just fizzled out because they couldn't make sense of him. But get this last part. The guardsmen who were saved, they didn't throw a parade. They sent out a distress signal. Being saved for free, with no sacrifice, was actually more terrifying to them than a planet full of orcs. So next up, he pops up on the radar of the tech priests of Mars. And they didn't see a savior, not at all. They looked at him and saw a walking, breathing blasphemy against their machine god. And their reasoning was pretty simple, really. First, he was this perfect biological machine that just didn't decay in a universe where everything rots. Second, he had all this power without needing any cybernetics or prayers. His very existence basically whispered, hey, maybe that machine god, and all of you, aren't actually necessary. All right, so for the final test, a full-blown demonic incursion right in the segmentum solar near Terra. And the way he won this fight? Well, it showed a crack in the armor of chaos that the Imperium had never even dreamed of exploiting. See, the Imperium fights chaos with faith, right? It's like fighting fire with more fire. He used something else entirely. Clarity. The daemons tried to feed on his fear, his rage, his hope, and they found nothing. The archive literally says the warp recoiled because it was unfed. He didn't beat chaos in a fight. He starved it. He was a total void in their psychic economy. So after all this, after seeing him just casually break the fundamental rules of orcs, the Mechanicus, and even chaos, the Inquisition finally gets it. His physical power was never the issue. The real threat was the idea he represented. And there it is. That's the whole ballgame. The entire Imperium is built on one single, horrifying belief that all the suffering, all the unimaginable cruelty, It's necessary to survive. Hope is the little voice that whispers, what if it isn't? And to the High Lords of Terra, that is the most dangerous idea in the universe. And you could actually see this pathogen spreading. On every world he touched, these tiny cracks would appear in the foundation of Imperial control. A guardsman starts to wonder if a suicide charge is really the only way. A citizen feels safe for a day without prayer. Each one of those thoughts is a little fracture in the story that holds the entire galaxy together. And of course, the Imperium tried to get their hooks in him. They tried to rebrand him as a living saint, an angel of the Emperor, you know the drill. But it just didn't stick. You can't control something that doesn't want your praise and won't take your orders. He was, by his very nature, uncontrollable. So, they can't fight him, they can't control him. What's left? The Inquisition pulls out its last, and honestly, its most horrifying weapon. Not a blade, not a virus bomb, but the truth. Instead of trying to kill him, they did something else. They invited him to the most sacred place in the galaxy, the throne world itself, Holy Terra. They were going to defeat him by showing him exactly what this galaxy is. They brought him before the Golden Throne, and they made him look. They showed him the real price of keeping humanity alive. Not a glorious god king, but a dying, psychic engine kept sputtering along only by the daily sacrifice of 1,000 souls just to power the light that holds the darkness back. And that's it. Checkmate, the ultimate grimdark paradox. Because if he stopped that sacrifice, if he saved those 1,000 souls a day, the Astronomican would go out. The psychic beacon that lets ships travel, that holds the Imperium together, it would just blink out. The galaxy would go dark, and chaos would win. To save this universe by his own code, he'd have to seize control, becoming the very tyrant he would always oppose. So, in the end, his departure wasn't a defeat. It was a mutual rejection. He rejected a galaxy that could only be saved through atrocity, and the galaxy rejected a hero whose very existence was a truth it couldn't handle. This is the final entry in the whole file, from the Ordo Chronos custodian who sealed it. And it's not a military report, it's an epitaph. It's a tombstone for an idea, the idea that this galaxy could ever be anything other than what it is. He was a reminder of a better way that could never, ever be allowed to exist here. And so the file closes, leaving us with that one question. And really, it's the ultimate challenge the 41st Millennium throws at you, right? If the price of survival is the death of everything that makes you worth saving in the first place, what exactly are you fighting for?